Hello and welcome to Studio Biz and all that jazz. This interview I have today with the amazing Tricia Gomez is one that you're going to want to stick around for, studio owners and teachers, because we are going to talk about how you can better understand students with special needs, behavioural challenges, sensory needs, neurodiverse learners, and more. And this is something that we are seeing quite frequently within our world, let alone within our classrooms. And I just think, we need to better educate ourselves and have a plan when it comes to appropriately managing these students within our space, but also making sure that it's a positive experience, not just for the child, yes, for the child, of course, or for the student, but also for the teacher, for everyone around them, and to really come together as a community and make this such a positive learning experience and such an inclusive experience for everyone in the space. That's what my hope is. And Tricia Gomez is all about that. Now, she has been a staple in the dance teacher education space for the past 15 years. Prior to teaching teachers, Tricia had a robust professional performing career. She danced for the LA Lakers. She was, with Universal Studios, Disney. She was choreographing for TV shows and more. She's also, the creator of Hip Hop in a Box, which is really fun. She'll talk about that in the episode. And most recently, Tricia has focused on educating teachers on best practices for working with students who have unique needs, including cognitive delays, learning differences, physical abilities, behavioural challenges. And this is all through her company, Rhythm Works Integrative Dance. Okay, so this is really cool. And she's going to talk about that as well. And that's an educational service as well for teachers who want to learn about how to best serve these, students within the classroom. And I think that's really magical. Now, in 2021, Tricia acquired the IntelliDance curriculum and training, which focuses on the developmentally significant parent and me classes for babies ages 3 months through to 5 years. And in 2021, Tricia also launched Teaching Artist Exchange, which is a global marketplace, sort of like Etsy for teachers, where teachers from around the world can host their own store to share their brilliant teaching resources. This is exciting. There's so much to learn from Tricia Gomez. She's got her hand in many different areas of the industry. And today we are going to talk about quite a lot of it, but we are definitely going to be focusing on her work with Rhythm Works Integrative Dance. All right, let's jump into the show. Hello and welcome to Studio Biz and all that jazz. I'm your performing arts business coach and host, Josephine Lancuba. This show is designed to bring you inspiration, information, and the instruments you need to create and grow the studio biz of your dreams. I will bring you a mix of solo episodes as well as interviews where I tap into the minds of industry experts. My career started as a performer over 2 decades ago. I later became a speaker, theatrical producer, and talent manager, as well as having a successful teaching career in singing, drama, and dance. 10 years into my professional journey, I became a mama of 2 and with a baby on my hip, opened up my very own performing arts studio. From hardship and humble beginnings to 4 studio locations and a multi-6-figure performing arts biz, I know how to attract students and keep them coming back for more. And in the show, I will share with you my experiences to help you thrive and fast-track your path to success. I know you have a spark inside of you with dreams and goals for the future. As your coach and mentor, I'm here to help you step into your limelight and be a cheerleader in your ear each and every week. So get ready to be entertained and inspired as we talk studio biz and all that jazz. Hello to the wonderful Tricia Gomez from Rhythm Works Integrative Dance. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Pleasure to be here.
Now, I saw you in some sort of Facebook group, I think it was, and you were talking about what you do, and I was just really moved by it. I thought it was inspiring, and I wanted to share that with my audience today. So for everyone at home that has never heard of Tricia Gomez or Rhythm Works Integrative Dance, what exactly, do you do? What do you do in this world?
Wow, a lot actually. My main focus right now is really uh, giving education to teachers so that they can understand what the heck's going on in class, right? So there's the skills that you learn in class, right? Your ballet, your tap, your jazz, your hip hop, contemporary, whatever it is. But there's a lot of soft skills that teachers are very unprepared for. So things like, challenging behavior, or we're seeing a lot of sensory deficits in class where it's impacting a child's ability to learn or their ability to self-regulate in class. So that causes behaviors that are challenging. There's, after COVID, we're seeing a lot of deficits with executive function skills, and that's causing issues with participation in class, and a lot of just neurodivergence. I think teachers are finally starting to realize that you can't just go in and whatever your style of teaching is, it's your way or the highway. They can't do that anymore, so they're starting to realize that they need some additional tools. So I help them by providing that education. So we focus in on working with students who have special needs, just behavior and self-regulation in general, regardless of if a child has any kind of diagnosis. There's actually some research that's showing that I think it's 1 in 6 kids, whether they're diagnosed with something or not, has some kind of sensory processing challenge. And so that means they're either seeking more sensory input to help regulate themselves, or they're trying to avoid certain sensory input because they're sensitive to it. And that's, causing issues with self-regulation as well. We're not taught that in school, so coming into that
really interesting, because that's a lot, like 1 in 6. That's quite
1 in 6, right? So, I mean, imagine this: you have a class of 12 kids, right? So let's say you average 12 kids in class and you have 50 kids on the schedule, or 50 classes on the schedule. If 2 kids in class have some kind of sensory challenge, that's 2 kids times 50. Can you afford to lose that many kids? Because these kids aren't getting their needs met. So these are the kids that don't come back because, it was an over challenge for them because they weren't being taught the way they need to be taught, or there was behavioral challenges. So they ended up getting kicked out of the school, or, whatever the reason is, the needs aren't being met. And it's just way more prevalent now than it was in the past. And
yeah, I want to touch on that actually, and I want to dive into how this all came about. But before we do, you're saying it's more prevalent. Do you think that is because we are diagnosing more, or do you think that is is it just that there are more people with these challenges coming up? Like, what do you think the shift and change is now? Why are we seeing 1 in 6? Was there always 1 in 6?
Yeah.
We just didn't know about it,
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of things. I think our awareness is more now. I also think COVID impacted a lot of this. I think, during those early developmental years when kids need to be outside and playing and, just working with different people, a lot of the things that we learn in terms of like strategies of how we cope or figure out how to do things, that comes from observing other people. And some kids didn't have that for 2 years. And if they were in that chunk of years where they were forming those strategies, or should have been forming those strategies, yet they were blocked from having those opportunities, we're seeing a lot of delays. I would say globally, most teachers that I speak to are just seeing big gaps in just regular skills that a kid should have, like tying shoes. There was some post about tying shoes on Facebook, and they were like, my 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds can't tie their shoes. Like, what's going on? And, number one, I think it's because they're, instead of being outside and playing with your fingers, dexterity, they're doing this or this, right? So that coordination isn't getting layered upon to have the motor plans that they need to do simple things like tie their shoes. So
yeah, that's crazy.
I think
my son is 7 and he can't tie his shoes. My daughter though could. So yes, I totally get you.
Yeah,
I
I think
think,
it's
oh
a lot.
gosh, we've got to teach this boy to tie his shoes. It's getting ridiculous. I picked him up from soccer yesterday and his shoes had come undone. So he played the whole thing like, the whole, I was going to call it rehearsal. What do you call it? Practice. The soccer
I love those
rehearsal.
soccer costumes too.
With his shoelaces untied. First of all, I thought, could the teacher have not at least helped him tie his shoelaces? That was my first point. But secondly, I thought, oh, for goodness sakes, boy, we got to teach you some skills.
The
But anyway,
question is,
look,
though, did he recognize that his shoes were untied?
yes, he told me, Mum, we
He
have to
did?
get
Okay.
new shoes. These are silly. I'm like, no, honey, you need to learn to tie your shoelaces. But anyway, look, and I love this because it's universal, isn't it? Like I'm here in Sydney,
is.
Australia. You're at the moment in Florida in the States, and I know you bounce around from town to town, which we had a quick chat about before we got started. But it's a universal topic, talking about challenging behaviors. And I really don't think it matters where your studio is from or where that classroom is. I think it's definitely something we can all benefit from learning how to manage and cope and strategize around that. But before we deep dive into that, because I would love you to share some strategies with our listeners on how to sort of help them with these sorts of situations that may arise in the classroom. How did your personal journey start in dance? I read that you've danced, for the Los Angeles Laker girls. You were dancing with Universal, Disney, choreographing for television shows. So you've had this really big career, and I think that's really beautiful. How did that come about and then shift into this space? Because that's very different, Laker girl to working
Well,
in this space.
so I started as a teacher.
Yeah, okay.
Out of high school. I was 17 years old when I opened up my first dance studio. So
Very young.
I was very young, and that's where I started. And I danced for my college football team. And then one day I was like, I just want to audition for Laker Girls. So I flew out to LA and auditioned, and I have no idea how or why I made that team, but out of 600 people, I was one of 17 chosen to be on the team. So
Amazing.
that was kind of like the start of just a wonderful professional dancing career. And then I got into an accident in a show and dislocated my neck and pretty much ended my professional performing career. And that's when I went back to teaching and opened up another dance studio in LA, started working. I was a teaching artist for Disney Performing Arts at Disneyland. So we would get lots of Australian studios coming backstage at Disneyland to take class with us. And I did that for quite a while.
What do you mean by teaching artist?
Yeah, so Disney has a program. I think they've changed the name. It used to be called Disney Performing Arts. I think it's now called, I'm not going to get it right, so I'm not going to say it. But but anyways, schools can come back and take a class with one of the Disney teaching artists. And it's it's not a dance class at Disney. It's a Disney class using the vehicle of dance. And so it's a very magical experience. And, we would teach dancers of all ages, of all levels backstage at Disneyland. And then sometimes they would get an opportunity to go out and perform if they set up a show. So they would do a show. Sometimes they would do parades. So all kinds of fun things. So I did that for quite a while. And then ended up getting back into teaching and focusing more on teaching teachers as opposed to teaching kids. And yeah, that's kind of where I've been since I think 2014, 2015, actually 2008 is when I started teaching teachers.
Yeah. And then how did it move into this space? Because you're really focused on that, challenging behaviors, special needs, neurodiverse. So how did you end up in this particular pocket of the industry?
I like to call it divine intervention. I was pregnant, and my 21st week of pregnancy ended up losing my son and almost dying myself, and had a little magical experience at that point that just kind of left me with the knowing that there was something else, that it was not my time, and that I just needed to be aware of what it was, that if I was open to it, that it would present itself to me. And, after recovering from that over, a year or so, People, you know, when you learn a new word, you've never heard that word, but as soon as you learn a new word, all of a sudden it's everywhere, like you hear it everywhere. So I had heard of autism before and, you know, different types of special needs, but all of a sudden, it seemed like every conversation I was having had to center around with autism. And I have a product called Hip Hop in a Box, which is like a little a kit that has flashcards in it, and each card has a different dance step on it, and you link them together and create routines out of it. And people kept saying, can I use Hip Hop in a Box with kids who have autism? And it was like this running theme over and over again. And I kept saying, maybe I should do something with like dance and autism. And so I started what I called a year of yes. And, you know, it was one of those things where it's like, if someone comes up to me and says, hey, you should read this book, or you should take this class, or have you thought about blah, 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 or I'd like to introduce you to my friend, or do you want to come out with me to a party tonight or whatever, I was going to say yes for the next year, because I knew that it would lead to the things that I needed in order to get to wherever I needed to go. And through that course, the most amazing event of things just fell into place and led me to this path of creating Rhythm Works. And I look at it and go, there's no way I could have created that on my own. Like I feel like it came through me out into the world, and it was just my job to get it out into the world, because it's incredible. I mean, there are things that I wish I would have known when I was 17, or, you know, I wish I would have known when I was 30 teaching dance class, that just would have made a world of a difference, not just for me as a teacher and my frustration with dealing with behaviors that I didn't know what to do with, but for the students too. I look back and I'm like, gosh, I failed so many students because I just wrote them off as the bad kid, and this wasn't the place for them to be, or, you know, they just learn choreography. I don't know, right? And
I love that honesty. And I think that is key when we have to deal with these sorts of things in the space. And I hate using the word deal, like deal with it, you know.
Right. Yeah.
If we could have a strategy around it, a plan, an action plan, you know. But I love the honesty, you know, that you felt that you weren't servicing them to the best of your ability, because you can only do what you know, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think we need to just be honest with ourselves about how we do manage people with special needs or these different, you know, abilities within our classroom, because sometimes we're not doing the best job, you know. And for example, we had a teenage, and I've worked in disability circuit. I've done quite a bit in that space for a good couple of years, and my strength is vocal. So I've worked as a singing teacher for people with disability, and some people that actually just couldn't use their voice due to, you know, speech problems and whatnot. And it wasn't about getting a beautiful sound, it was about them using their voice, right? And so I've worked with all types of people, and it's been very rewarding work. But, you know, likewise, there are challenges in a classroom when it comes to studio business, because if we do have someone that has challenging behaviors or something that we don't understand, it can be intimidating for the teacher. It can also be, I hate to use these words, like it can put off the students because it's different behavior in the room. So a couple of years ago, we had a teenage girl in our class who was autistic, and we've had many autistic kids come through. We've had all different people come through our studio, but she was, you know, having outbursts of yelling in class. Sometimes there was just random profanity come out. So what ended up happening was we had a chat to the parent. We ended up getting a support person in the room, and, you know, it was a 90-minute class. We decided together with the parent that might be a bit too long, like let's minimize the time and adjust it for her. And we tried all these different techniques, but there was a point where the teacher didn't want to teach the class, and that was really hard. And then there was a point where a couple of kids felt a bit uncomfortable due to the outbursts. So that's really hard as a business owner. So what do we do? Tell me, what do you do?
Absolutely. It's very challenging because there's no like magic bullet, right? There's no like, do this and everything's going to be great, right?
Yes.
I think it boils down to the question of why. Because all behavior, and when we think of behavior, I want you to think of like, what do we see, right? Something that's quantifiable, something that we can describe that's happening, that's disruptive to the environment. And maybe it's not even disruptive to the environment. Maybe it's productive to the environment, but it's the things we do and it's quantifiable. But it's always communication, and behavior serves a purpose to either get something or to avoid something. It's as simple as that. So as teachers, if we can kind of drill down and figure out, what is this kid trying to say? So if a kid is having, all of a sudden they start yelling in class, it could be a bunch of different reasons why they're yelling, but they're yelling for a reason. It's not just because they want to yell. It's usually because they're either trying to avoid something or they're trying to seek something. So I've seen kids when like fluorescent lights, they'll emit a really high pitched tone that a lot of us can't hear, but if they're sensitive to hearing, they can hear it very well. And a lot of kids, it's very aversive and irritating to them. And so what they'll do is they'll start humming and making sounds and talking to drown out those sounds that they're hearing, because it becomes pretty, it's a regulation strategy for them to drown out that sound. It could be that, if a kid is running around in class, they could be seeking out maybe vestibular input, where the little mechanisms in your ear that help you with your equilibrium and gravity, in your balance, that could be a little bit off. So they may need to seek a more intense form of vestibular input in order to regulate themselves. So there's a lot of behavior that we see in class that may seem distracting, but in fact, it's purposeful to the kid that's doing it. So as the teacher, we need to kind of drill down and say, okay, what could this be? Like, what could be causing it? I've had kids just like break out into a full like yelling fit when we played songs with auto-tune, right? I was so excited. There was a song, it was that freeze dance song. I was like, yes, I'm coming. New song. Yeah. Turned it on and it was auto-tune. And this one kid was just like, yeah, like he just lost it.
With one kid for Michael Jackson.
Yeah. And so,
that was like, oh my God, don't play Michael Jackson.
That's the simple answer is we're not playing that song, right? So I could either play that song and have a kid yelling, or I can not play that song and find another song and have that kid participate. And to me, participation is a little bit more important than playing that song. So you really have to, have some tools in your belt so that you can play detective.
Yeah, I like that.
It changes you. Like for me, like I used to be that person who would get the life sucked out of me because there was, it was Tuesday, 4:30 and this kid's coming to class and I know his energy is just like bouncing off the walls.
It's a mindset thing too, isn't it? Because it's walking into the class. It's like anything in life, right? If you walk in with a mindset of, oh God, here we go. This is going to be hard.
It pulls you down.
Right. But if you walk in if you have some strategies in place, like, okay, well, we won't play that song or we'll turn down whatever we need to do.
Do you have a plan for Studio Biz success for 2024? You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even want to think about that. I can't even think about the next 4 weeks, let alone how my year is going to look like in 2024 in my business. But just imagine what your studio would look like if you had a plan, achieving everything you strive for every 90 days. Perhaps you already have systems in place and a solid plan for your studio biz every year, but chances are that those goals and plans have been pushed aside. I bet you have great intentions. However, time can get the better of you, and that dedication you initially placed on goal setting sometime back in January 2023 is somehow become rushed and you've passed by your goals this year and not everything came to fruition. Somehow work tasks became ongoing, dreams were overlooked or pushed aside, and your priorities got lost when life and business started getting in the way. It happens. It so happens. So don't worry. There is totally hope for you. And I'm here to assist you in planning well for next year. And I've got this, big picture for my business and for my life, but do you have a big picture for your studio biz? We're already at the end of 2023, so don't let it slip away from you. You've totally got this. Set aside time this January with me at my 90-day planning session. It's my 90-day studio planning workshop, and together I'm going to help you in a group environment. We're going to work through my annual planner and my 90-day planner template resource, which I'm going to give to you. We're going to work through it and do it together, because if you want to have a profitable and sustainable studio biz, committing to writing a plan is the first critical step in moving forward towards your dream studio and desired business environment. You need to dedicate real time to set achievable goals. So let's do it. Jump in now and join my 90-day planning workshop this January. Head to josephinelancuba.com/90-day plan or head to the link in the show notes. Back to the show.
What about with the other kids in the room? Do you think that there's a benefit in letting the other students know about what's happening? I mean, they intuitively know, obviously, like potentially got autism or special needs or something's going on. Is that a conversation we should be having with the rest of the class for a sense of understanding and inclusion? Or where's your thoughts around that?
That I would take the lead of the parent, because that's medical and that's HIPAA related. I don't know if you guys have HIPAA there, but it's a privacy thing, right?
Yeah.
So I would talk to the parents and say, how would you feel if we, talk to the kids about this and ask the kids for help in certain situations? Or do you want us not to say anything? Or if we do say something, do you want to say something and explain it to them? Do you want to be in the room? Do you want to, take Sally out of the class whenever we talk to them? Or like follow the lead of the parent right there, so that, they can be part of that decision and you're not just telling all of the,
having that open communication and respecting the family's decision on their privacy, I think is really important.
Yeah. Or even if, it maybe you don't tell the whole kid, maybe you, or the whole class, maybe you have one or two kids who tend to be more compassionate and want to be helpful leaders in class. So maybe you have that conversation, you and the parents have the conversation with those two kids, right? And say, if you happen to see Sally, sitting on the floor or whatever it is, or, whatever the situation is and whatever a possible solution is, you can work with those kids to kind of be a peer leader in that case as well.
Yeah. And I think having that inclusion point too, like, it can be simple. There are definitely more challenging scenarios, but there are simple scenarios as well. For example, with one of our children with autism, we were doing an in-studio solo showcase for parents. And typically when the crowd claps really loudly, they, put their hands over their ears and sort of duck down a little bit. So before we got started, I said, oh, look, did you want me to let the audience know that, no clapping after your performance? What would you, because they're a teenager, so they can make their own decisions.
They can make,
And and I said, they are going to clap after you finish. Would you like me to tell them not to before you step out? And they said, no, thank you. I'm okay with that. That was their decision. And then she was prepared for it, and it went well. Whereas last time we didn't prepare for it and they cowered down, and I thought, oh, well, we need to, prepare for that next time,
And that's one big strategy is and we call them, we don't call them social stories, but they're known as social stories. And if you do have a kid that is, will be sensitive in certain situations or need extra help in certain situations, you can actually write out a script, a story of what to expect. And, we go out on stage, we're going to, the lights are going to go low. We're going to get in our positions. The music's going to come on. It may be a little bit louder than normal. We're going to do our dance. There might be some bright lights shining in front of your face. You may be able to see the audience. You might not be able to see the audience. And then when you're done, the audience is going to clap, and then we're going to exit. You kind of go through all the steps so that the kid knows what to expect, because that helps them with their anxiety of, I like to relate it to being in an airplane. and needing to get up to go use the bathroom. And like right as you get up, the pilot turns on the seatbelt sign, and all of a sudden the plane's like bouncing up and down, and you're just like, right? And you, yeah, but all you can think of is I gotta go to the bathroom. I gotta go to the bathroom. How is it going to be 5 minutes or is it going to be 2 hours? Because I could wait 5 minutes, but I can't wait 2 hours. And your brain just gets stuck on that, right? But if the guy came on and said, hey, we're about to go through some turbulence, so I'm going to turn on the seatbelt sign. It's only going to be about 15 minutes. And as soon as we get to clear air, we'll turn it off and you can walk around and go to the bathroom. Then I know what to expect, right? I know we're about to hit some bumps. So when we start hitting them, I'm not going to freak out and think the plane's falling to the ground. And, and then I know that, okay, I can wait 15 minutes. So I'm not fixated on
when can I go? What can I do? What is this?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it all boils down to communication, really, and
Totally.
preparing kids what to expect.
I think we are seeing more sensory issues in classes. I think being a little bit flexible around particular uniform or dress code items has been something that we've needed to be. Even costumes. So we did a costume fitting recently. We had a child with sensory issues and they just were not having it with the stockings. So I said, okay, let's not do stockings. I don't know, like, what's the diff? I said to the parent came up and said, look, really sorry, but we're just having a few issues with stockings. And I said, okay, so what would you like to do? They said, well, we were hoping we didn't have to wear the stockings. I said, you know what? Don't wear the stockings. That's so fine. Like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, right? And it wasn't a big deal. And it was fine, and who cares, right? So we managed that. Sometimes I think a bit of flexibility is okay.
Absolutely. And we're working, I don't know if you know this, we're working with Revolution Dancewear. And every year we go in and we evaluate every piece of dancewear that they have and designate different sensory icons for those dancewear. Yeah. So I don't know if they have, I think you guys have a different supplier out in Australia. And I'm trying to work with them to get, do you guys, I don't know if you guys go through IDS or not, but I'm trying to get them to get us to do the sensory evaluations on.
We have, you mean like the support government program that helps fund certain?
No, this is
NDIS?
No, this is, so Revolution Dancewear has an international arm of their dancewear. And so the ones sold in the US and Canada, they're all evaluated by us for sensory icons, but we're working with that. I want to work with the international arm so that UK, Australia, New Zealand can get sensory friendly dancewear. That
sounds amazing. I've actually never heard of that. I mean, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I've never heard of it. Having sensory, logos and things saying, hey, this will suit this type of person, or this will suit that type of sensory issue. I think that's really interesting, actually. Yeah, that's really cool concept. You got lots going on, I got to tell you.
I know. Whatever we can do to help.
So what would you say would be your, if you could give 1 or 2 top tips of advice to people that are running a classroom, teachers that are running a classroom and are having these sorts of issues, whether it be sensory, autism, challenging behavior, neurodiverse, whatever it is, what is a couple of top tips you would give to a teacher who's really struggling and finding it hard to keep up with the situation in class and make it positive?
Number 1, get some education under your belt so that you have tools to dip into, because like I said, it's not a one size fits all. And it's, what works for one kid is not going to work for the next kid. And to be honest with you, what works for one kid 1 week is not going to work for them the next week, because, we all have different levels of being on the edge, depending on what's happened to us throughout the whole day. And most of the time we get them at the end of the day. So they've already had a full day of getting bombarded with sensory input and challenges and, having to deal with stuff. So we kind of get them at the end of their string. So understanding what to look for and just some tools in your bag of how you could actually help that child. So I would say number 1, get education. Number 2, don't jump to the conclusion that the kid is doing it just to get attention, because it's rarely just to get attention. There's usually something else going on, so like, I look at ADD, and ADD is a dopamine problem in the brain. The dopamine production is under responsive. So, I would say, imagine a line, and anything above the line, you'll be able to focus and pay attention on things, but anything below the line, it's going to be hard to focus on things, especially things that are non-preferred tasks. So, you get into, stretching part of class, and, the kids their dopamine starts to dip and they lose them. And then now the kid is just, not paying attention, not focusing, understanding that certain types of movement and things like that can help to spike the dopamine production and get them to focus a little bit better. Or using different inflections in your voice, like music, different types of music can help to spike that dopamine. So, it's not a kid that's just looking for attention. It's a kid that just might be moving so that they can stay focused, and you're wanting them to stand on their dot still, and they can't. They need something else to help them focus. So, diving into that why of what's happening. And I always go to sensory first. I always try to think, okay, what is this kid trying to get? What are they trying to avoid? Is it something that I can adjust in my class? Is it the music? Is it the rumbling of the air conditioning? Is it the studio next door to us is playing their music too loud, and the auditory, there's like auditory confusion, and now the kid can't really understand the instructions? Does the kid not want to touch anybody, and so they don't like to be around anyone, and they don't like to mix and mingle and hold hands, and they're afraid that they're going to get touched? So looking at those things, I think, will help the teacher to understand what's going on. And getting back to mindset, it takes you from being that like, oh, this kid, to, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try this. I'm going to see how that kid responds. And if the kid is verbal and the kid can communicate well to you, then by all means, ask the kid, what is it? What can I do to help? Right. And another thing to remember too is, when a kid is escalating, so when a kid is showing, pretty, crazy, for the lack of better words, and I wouldn't say crazy, I would say escalated behavior, right? So more intense behavior, trying to give them instructions is not the time. That is, telling them to, sit down, just sit down, like that is, they're not going to listen. There needs to be calming strategies to help that child calm down first, in order to receive instructions. There's a great, I think his name is, I'm going to forget it, Stephen somebody or another, but he explains it. So if you make the number 4 with your hand, where your thumb is tucked under and your other 4 fingers are straight up, if you think about where your palm is, so your thumb and the palm of your hand, he describes that as the downstairs brain. And the downstairs brain is where your big, strong emotions live. Like, this is I want to do this now, or I got to get away from this now feeling right here.
Yeah.
Top part, if you take your 4 fingers and curl them over your thumb, so making like a fist, but your thumb is inside instead of outside, the 4 fingers are your top part of your upstairs brain. So this is your downstairs brain, your bottom part, and then your 4 fingers are your upstairs brain. Your upstairs brain is where all of your like kind, connected thought processes go. It's where you go to get your strategies, and your self-regulation lives there. But sometimes these emotions in the downstairs brain just they get way out of control, and you pop your lid and your fingers pop up, and you're not able to access, your downstairs brain is not able to access your upstairs brain. And so you're not going to be able to follow instructions and participate properly when you're escalated like that. So you want to teach the kids, before they escalate, strategies to calm, so that they can close their lids, so that then they can be ready to receive instructions and participate properly.
Yeah, so it's almost a prevention method rather than, not that you can prevent it necessarily, but trying to preempt that escalation by having strategies in place.
Yeah. And there's little things like I once you get to know a kid, you can start to recognize on their face, there's little like maybe it's like a little, like a tense feeling, or like, maybe they're biting their lips, or they're squeezing their eyes, or they're doing, some kind of like flapping with their hands or something. You can see those signs that that kid is starting to get to a point where they're over the edge, and that they are about to really escalate. And at that point, you can do some kind of strategy, whether it's like taking them out to sit on a chair just outside the door where it's a little calmer, or giving them some kind of like weighted vest to put on, or if it's, if they need chew necklace, some jewelry, to help with proprioceptive input to help them regulate. There's, different things that you can do to kind of intercept before they escalate.
Yeah, I love that. So education, of course, being that key, and then having those strategies in place to preempt that potential escalation is another key value there, which I also thought was great. Thank you for that. Before we wrap today, I'd love to ask you a couple of little questions that I love to ask my guests. So firstly, who or what inspires you most?
Wow. Okay. Who or what? It's really inspiring to me to watch people figure things out. Like, there's not a specific person that I'm like, oh, this person's so inspiring, but just to watch people go through that process of struggle and then all of a sudden like figure it out. And it's that aha moment of like, oh my gosh, like they're either struggling to get some kind of skill in class, or some kind of problem that they're trying to work out, and then or they finally like get the answer to this thing that's been bothering them. Like, I live for those moments, and we see that in class a lot. Whenever I used to teach this live, the Rhythm Works course live in person, and just to sit and watch the people in class, they were like, oh my, like you can finally see like, oh my God, that's what's going on with that child. Like they start to put, connecting those dots. To me, that keeps me going. So
yeah, and those aha moments.
Yes.
And we see it time and time again, even as parents, with our own children, when it's like the first time they learn to walk or the first time they learn to swim, and you just have that, oh my gosh, you're amazing. But yeah, exactly. I've never had someone actually give me that response. I love that. And it's working through the challenge and the fear and having that aha moment. They are very inspiring moments.
And when I go back to through my teaching career, I've had kids who have gone on to be professional dancers, and that's great. But the things that I remember are those little moments, right? That time when that kid, jumped for the first time, or balanced on one leg for more than 2 seconds, or whatever it is, and it's just like a big deal to them. And like a kid learning how to jump, like that's life-changing, right? Like it's not just dance class, like that's playing on the playground, that's just going to different places with their family and jumping off of little things. Like that is life-changing. So yeah, those are the moments you remember and you take with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So what does success look like and mean to you?
So after I lost my son and went through this process with, creating Rhythm Works, I kind of made an agreement that success to me would be impacting people and changing, seeing that they're able to now, handle things with more grace, or teach things in a way where a child could finally understand and get it. That's success to me. You can make money 100 million different ways, but just knowing that you made a difference, I think is a big deal.
Yeah, that is so true. And you can make money 100 million different ways. You've got so many things going, Tricia. I love it. I love it so much. But at the end of the day, I'm actually reading a book called Thrive from Arianna Huffington at the moment, and she talks about the 3 metrics of success, and the 2 ones that we've always known, and the ones that people strive for the most being money, power, right? Or power, fame, whatever you want to call it, but money and power. But the 3rd metric to success being wellness and And that's being at the forefront now, and just being able to, what you do is you're impacting people's wellness. And so being able to do that is a great legacy and a great success story. So that's phenomenal. Thank you so much. Now, before we go, and I want to say thank you for being on the show. Where can people find you? Where's the best place for them to look you up online?
Ooh, all over the place. So Tricia Gomez Luzio, Luzio, and it's that's on Facebook. There's 2 accounts, but you want to look for the one with me leaning over. There's like a light ring behind me pointing at it. That's the one with me. So Facebook there. But you can see all of the things that we're up to at inspirecreateeducate.com.
Inspirecreateeducate.com. We'll make sure we pop a link in the show notes for everyone as well.
Okay. And there you can learn more about Rhythm Works. You can learn more about IntelliDance, which is our Parent and Me program. Starts at age 3 months old, all the way up to 5 years old. And that is a phenomenal brain development program. It's all science-backed and based, and uses music and movement to help develop the brain and the body. Then what else do we do on there? We have Dance in a Box, which is where you can get our hip hop in a box and 1, 2, 3 dance. And we have all kinds of teaching resources on there. And Teaching Artist Exchange, which is
I saw that. Teaching Artist Exchange looks awesome. I want to go check that out. What is Teaching Artist Exchange?
So think of it as like Etsy for dance teachers. So it's global platform, and any dance teacher, studio owner can go on and open up their store on the platform and sell their awesome ideas, right? So like we have things like handbooks or activity sheets that you've done in class, stage show spreadsheets to, for your production to get everything ready, like anything that you can think of, instructional videos, lesson plans. We have coloring pages and planners and literally anything.
Literally Etsy for
and so there's I built it because there's so many brilliant teachers out there and studio owners that have done the work for you, right? So why not sell it to other teachers who are looking for those things? The other teachers know that when they buy it, they're supporting another fellow teacher. And these other teachers who have these great ideas can have a little side hustle going on without the whole production of like creating a website and the marketing machine that goes behind it, and all the money that goes out in order to do that. Just gives them a little place to sell that, and it's a one-stop shop. So it's growing, but it's some really cool stuff on there.
Okay, well, I think the work you're doing obviously is so fantastic. You're making an impact, focusing on the well-being of those people, which is beautiful. And we love that so much. I want to thank you again for being on the show. You've been an absolute pleasure today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And yes, I'm happy to help in any way. I know behavior and just neurodivergence in general is becoming kind of the hot button words right now. But it's really that part of teaching dance that most teachers are unprepared for. You know?
Absolutely.
But it doesn't have to be.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
This episode was brought to you by my signature group coaching program, Studio Biz Success, an amazing and accessible online educational platform for performing arts studio owners designed to help you grow your business with confidence and get your results. Check it out at josephinelancuba.com, along with other great industry resources to help you leap into the studio biz you deserve. If you love this episode, be sure to share it with your friends. You can tag me on social media at Josephine Lancuba and give it a review. Your support helps the show to grow so I can continue to provide you with useful, informative content. I'm Josephine Lancuba, your biggest cheerleader. Thanks for listening and shine bright.